only find it, I find
You wanna run the
small
slides
bottles
for me?
at Sephora
Sure.
online.
Oh, really?
But
Hit the right button for me.
BBC has the gallon, so I just order it like once a year.
Awesome.
It's called
All right,
Blend.
so I'm Derek Faber with Scarlet Air Credit Repair. A little about me and my wife. We started our business in 2018, 2019 as an e-commerce business. We started selling on Amazon. And it took me a while to do all the research, find the right program on training, get trained all the way, and then do all the research in China, find your right product, brand yourself. By the time we got our first order, I had about $27,000 in and had some really fun conversations with my parents, with my wife, with her parents, on why most of our savings was now tied up into a bunch of rugs. Rugs are not sexy, they're not fun, they're not something you think you're gonna make a lot of money on, especially when you bet on yourself. So the first month that we were active, we made about $200. The second month, $300. The third month, we got up to $800, and I was like, all right, more than double, we're on the right path. The fourth month, we did $50,000, and so I started, the company that I had bought the training from took track of everybody's progress, and then I started coaching for them, and was quickly of about 800 people in the first 3 months. And they were people from the UK, South America, all 50 states. And so a lot of that was not just how to be e-commerce, but doing business credit. And Tier 1 business credit does a lot with personal credit, so I started working on credit immediately in 2019. Didn't really have to go looking for clients because they were all handed to me pretty much because they're all business. And so it was a fun learning on yourself and family at that time, before I was feeling comfortable charging people or really giving that advice. My wife, when we pulled her credit reports, she was born in 1980 actually, but TransUnion said 1985. So she was pretty excited to gain 5 years of life being younger, but I explained it didn't really work that way. She was a little disappointed in me with that. But as we progressed, got through all of COVID and that fun stuff, all the Zoom meetings became the norm, and Amazon and Walmart and Etsy and Jane, and we had a Shopify store. We sold on multiple platforms, but Walmart and Amazon specifically started to make a shift saying that, hey, we're going to start to let the Chinese producers start to be your competition, which I'm not afraid of competition, but when they're the ones making my product, branding my product, shipping my product, they're able to do it a lot cheaper than I could, so margins dropped drastically. And I still sell there today. We've still got an active listing. We've got 1,400 5-star reviews. Our average is a 4.8 on Amazon. I'm shipping more cases out tomorrow. But when I'm done because I really have found, now that we're able to be in person again, I love being with people, I like helping people, I like seeing people's lives change. So that's where the shift, and it seemed like out of nowhere we were here. It wasn't that we haven't been doing this for a while, just we haven't been doing it locally. So that's a little bit about me and my wife and our business. We're going to go a little bit into credit. I like to define things, and this is based on FICO 8. The score scale starts at 300, goes to an 850, and it shows your credit worthiness to the lenders as a borrower and how it looks to those potential lenders. I'm ready for the next slide. Let's see. FICO is used in about 90% of lending decisions. It's a snapshot of your risk, and it's always changing. The 3 credit bureaus are paid to gather and provide the information on reports. A lot of times I get questions as to why those numbers are different. The reason is they're not all getting the same information. So as we start to build people's credit, we want to make sure that we're intentional on the accounts that we're opening and making sure that they're reporting to all 3 of those bureaus so that we're boosting it and growing it on all 3 reports, not just the 1 or 2. Next one. Credit's the ability to borrow funds over an extended period of time for an agreed upon amount of interest. While that report is just a document of the information accumulated from those institutions by third-party agencies to reflect how worthy you are of credit. The credit reports don't always have the scores on them, so it's when you get your annual report that you're able to get for free, it doesn't have the report on it or the score on it, it's just the information. But everyone should be doing that every 12 months just to make sure that you understand and recognize the accounts that are on there. You may have some identity theft or other problems. If when I did go through my divorce, I found that there was over $30,000 in debt that I was not aware of, that her lawyer was telling her, well, you're still married, you can open up some stuff, you've got a social.
Oops.
So there was a significant amount of debt that I was unaware of and didn't find out until after the judge had already said that it was all mine. So I didn't get a lawyer. It's like, all right, I just want to be out of this. So where do I sign? Those of you that, if you ever find yourself in that situation, get the knowledge ahead of time so you're not stuck with a bill that's not yours. All right, next one. Oh, you're fast. So I'm one that, especially when I'm talking to high school and college students, when I was in their shoes, it took me a while to understand why I was learning things, and I had to apply that to my life. If I couldn't apply what I was learning, I tuned it out. Took college algebra 4 times because they wanted to teach me some stupid graphing calculator, and I'm like, I'm never going to use that, so why are you wasting my time? Finally, the one where at Wichita State they're giving away basketball tickets at the end of every class, we went straight to the game. I stuck it with that one. So this is just an example. The average house in Kansas is about $250,000, 30-year fixed, based on the 2 scores. Those rates are not obviously up to market data. I'm not changing them regularly. But just as an example, you're looking at about $450 a month difference. So when I tell people it's a lifestyle difference, having a good credit score and a bad credit score, it's not just stuff. It's your bills get reduced because you're showing that you're worthy of a better interest rate to make those payments. And the next slide is going to talk a little bit about how much that is in interest. Little shock value when you see 6 figures in interest over 30 years just because of the score. Now, not the average person isn't going to stay in the house for those 30 years, but if they were, $161,000 that goes to the banks. And when I was in high school, my friends and I always joked about demand is keeping us down and the rich were getting richer, and we thought it was a joke. But in reality, the system is set up where in their shoes it's higher risk, so that it is justified, but at the same time, you can see here that based on that score, you are making the rich richer. So these are the 5 areas that the credit score for FICO is made up. We're going to go into each one of them a little bit.
Oh, you guys want me to go back so you can take a picture?
And anybody watching online, I'm sure Leslie will have questions for Q&A, so feel free to type them out.
Okay, are we ready?
Payment history is 35%, and just how I come up with the points, just to be fully transparent, you have the 850 top and the 300 bottom, so 850 minus 300 is 550 total points. So we take that 550 times the 35%, gets you 192.5. That's the total score of the payment history. Items like late payments, charge-offs, collections, settlements, and bankruptcies are the negative items that can help take the score and drop it from those points. What this comes down to, just to make it really quick and simple, is make your payments on time every time. What happens is that life happens, and that's why it starts to go down. So just understand that we've all been there. I've had to fight this. Like I said, with my divorce, I've gone through a bankruptcy. I've had a car repossessed. These are all things that have happened in life, but I choose not to let that define me. I pick myself up and I move on from it, and that's what I want to help people do. So, credit myths. Closing unused credit cards will improve my score. True or false?
False.
False. You lose all that history with it, so keep them active. Now, a lot of times I get questions about, like, if you start with a secured card or a high interest card or there's an annual fee, why would you keep that card active? Well, if you have multiple other accounts that are open and it's not going to really hurt your score, but you realize you're not going to use it to buy a home, to buy a car in the near future, then I have no issue with people closing accounts. But just understand, when you make financial decisions, you need to make a calculated risk and understand what the repercussions of that decision are. The same when you close an account is the same when you open an account. Make sure that you understand what the prerequisites are when you apply for something so that you're not risking being denied. by simply reading what those rules are, you could have known you weren't gonna get approved anyway, so. Credit utilization is a ratio of the amount of credit that's been offered to you and the amount of credit that's been used. It's 165 points or 30%. I like to start at a 30% goal for my clients. Ultimately, I want to keep it under 10. I don't like giving interest for no reason, so I want to make sure that they aren't either. To me, that's more money you can use for other things, and we talk more about statement dates and stuff like that also. So now we've got a fun example that's pretty recent. Had a client that we deleted 114 negative items, whether it was hard inquiries, a combination of some collections and charge-offs and stuff, and their score went down 45 points, and they were wondering why. Well, when you have a credit card and you max it out for Christmas, there are repercussions to that because you lose all your credit utilization. So you go Christmas shopping, you have $1,000 on a card, you use all $1,000. The interest rate on that card is 29.99%, which is a lot of entry-level cards, or if you miss a payment, it shoots up to that area. The minimum payment would be about $42.45 a month. If all you did was make those payments, any guesses on how long it would take to pay that card off?
Long time.
The next slide will show us. It'll take 3 years, and the total interest on that $1,000 is $528.06. So it's not just how long it's going to take, and that interest is, that utilization is going to be burned for that entire amount of time, if that's your only account. But it's also, like a lot of times people can justify, especially over Christmas, I got it on sale. Well, even at 20-30% off, if you max out a card, it takes you 3 years to pay it off. You didn't get it on sale, you paid way more than even what sticker price was. So credit is not a bad thing. You should be using credit every single day. I don't use debit cards at all.
Really?
But the intent is that I pay it off every single month. I want to use someone else's money and only use mine once a month. Mine can be growing in other areas. The next three are not as significant. Those first two are really 65% of your score, so in reality we need to focus on understanding those. And that's where I really tend to stop talking about it, do a lot of Q&As for students, but it is important to know what all of them are when we're talking to adults. So 15% of your score is the length of history. I like to, at this part, kind of shift our mentality as a consumer to that of a lender. So if I was going to ask you for $250,000 to buy a house and say I'm going to pay it off in 30 years and you've never met me, you're not going to want to look at one account and say, oh, okay, you've made this on time, sure, I'll just give it to you. You're going to want to look at multiple accounts, which is one of the next slides, but you're also going to see that I've been doing that for an extended period of time. So the more impressive you can be with multiple accounts in an extended period of time is what's going to show how appealing you are as a consumer to those lenders. So look at it from multiple perspectives as you're going through this this process of getting into your home. The lender is wanting to get there. They're wanting to get you there, but you have to make yourself appealing so that they can do that for you. Another myth, FICO score should be the same from all three credit bureaus. I touched about this a little bit at the beginning. No, because they don't all have the same information. Mix is the different types. So when I was talking about going out and up in age, revolving credit, charge cards, installment, some loans, service. So this is 55 of your total points. It's good to have that mix. It's good to show that you can prioritize your bills. That's what it comes down to. When I get married, my credit report is merged with my spouse's. True or false?
False.
That is false. You have a social security number, and the way I like to look at it is, or want you to look at it is to take emotion out. You're just a number. And while if your spouse goes to the hospital, they want someone to say, yeah, I'll make sure all these bills are paid. Just take care of my spouse. So some of those accounts may be indirectly tied to you, When you get a card and you have both of your signatures on that line, then that account is tied to both of you. But if you have a credit card and they have a credit card, then those are separate. So anybody that's getting married needs to know what's on each other's reports, because it's gonna affect your bills. I'm not gonna get into mid-scores and how that's done, because that's not my job, but ask Leslie or your realtor or your lender about how that stuff works, because it's important to know when you're going to apply for that loan, what each other's scores are and how that's gonna affect your interest rates. New credit or hard inquiries make up the remaining 10% or 55 points. I've seen anywhere from 20 or 30 to 75 to 100 within a 3-day span. If you get told no for something, don't keep finding somebody that'll eventually tell you yes. There's normally a reason. While they lose their, as the 24 months goes by before they fall off your credit report on the 25th month, the value of them starts to diminish as well, so the older ones aren't nearly as important to your score. But at the same time, a significant amount of those is showing that there's something going on in your life that you need that credit, and so it's something just to be, again, I go right back to intent. When you apply for anything, make sure you know what they're looking for and that you meet all those requirements before you do it. Don't just apply for something hoping that you get on, because otherwise if you don't get approved, you're hurting yourself. Credit Karma is a great way to look at my credit score. True or false?
False.
I think for my realtor friends, I think of Credit Karma as, I'm glad people are caring about their credit. But to me, it's like the Zillow of real estate, what it is for credit. The prices on Zillow are not always what real market rates are. And they use Vantage Score 3.0, they don't use FICO. They've also been having to do some settlements. I think it was July, they did a $3 million settlement where they were telling people, you need to boost your credit, sign up for this card, you're pre-approved. People signed up for it, weren't approved, and it was hurting their scores. But they have affiliate fees and they were just making a bunch of money. So even the $3 million they had to pay out was not significant amount of money that they made. So the fine print just changed, that's about it. Add yourself as an authorized user on your family member's oldest card. The key here is with good history, because you get the good and the bad. So parents, I get this question a lot too. How can I start building my kids' scores? I've got a 12-year-old, should I do it now? No. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what my future is going to be like in 5 years. Now, have every account that you have as if they are on it. So when they are at that age and you add them, you know you're adding all positive. But then I have clients who are like, I've asked every family member, they've added me, and they've added like 6 accounts that are maxed out. And I'm sitting there going, now your utilization's screwed. So you have to understand when you do things that it's affecting you all the way, not just the good. It's one of the tips that everyone throws out there, but if you don't really understand things before you do them, you don't want to hurt yourself. Removing late payments off your reports by simply asking for a courtesy removal. Having been in the Amazon business for a long time, I cannot count the number of hours that I've spent on the phone with a customer service rep that may or may not understand English. If you get on in a situation where you need something from any company in any situation in life, call them, treat them politely, because they will note your account if you're rude. If you're not getting the answer you want or an explanation, just thank them for their time, hang up, and call right back. You will not get the same person twice. Now, if you've gotten multiple different things that have happened, they're not going to just remove 120 days of late payments. But if you've had the account for 5 years, you've had one hiccup, they will. Negative items come off after 7 years. Bankruptcies will say between 7 and 10, depending on the form of bankruptcy that was filed. We've already gone over hard inquiries, and the difference between Vantage Score and FICO that's just 2 separate scoring systems. Vantage Score uses 6 different categories, which is one additional one. They do use the same 5 that we've gone over, but they're weighted differently. So that's why those numbers are all differently. They're transitioning to a new scoring system for lenders. specifically for home buying. They're going to do a combination of Vantage Score, and they're gonna do FICO 10T, and what they're saying is it's not gonna be a snapshot of people's credit, it's gonna be more like a 30-second video clip is the way that they're using as an analogy. So as those new updates come out, exactly what that means, then I'll be happy to share that with you. Right now, it's just more or less an announcement that things are gonna be changing. They're trying to make it more fair for people. It's gonna take into account, I believe, from what I've read, utility payments, stuff like that, and then less weight towards some of the medical stuff that's been going on. So. You checking your score will not affect your score. Most of the sites that you can do that are going to be paid, whether it's monthly or not. If you're denied for a card, then they are obligated to provide you with the reports. But don't just go apply for a card to get that credit report when there are ways for you to pull your credit, which is considered a soft pull, so you can see what that is.
You got it, Jared?
Yeah.
And then I'm more frustrated that my QR code's bigger than it should be, but
They came up.
living with a score above a 700 is living a different quality of life. Like I explained with just the interest rates alone, you're gonna see that quality of life change. But it's also, I mean, utility bills. You're not gonna put deposits down if you have a good credit score. Your auto insurance is, depending on the company, between 40 and 60% of your monthly bill is based off of your credit. So that's how I can tell a good insurance agent from a bad one, is if they even know that or care what the credit is of their clients. So with that, that's what I've got going into Q&A, so the time is yours. Anybody online throwing stuff at us?
Oh, I had a couple questions.
Not yet, okay.
Why, okay, you said you use credit cards instead of a debit card?
Yes,
Why?
because on a debit card, you're using your money for that transaction. On a credit card, you're using the bank's money. So I like to reference the movie Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio. The gentleman who was portrayed in the true life story has 3 adult kids that he does not let use debit cards, and they're adults still. So if someone gets a hold of your number and uses that money, you make a phone call, they credit your account, they do an investigation to get their money back. If you use that on a debit card, they do an investigation, you may or not see your money for 3 months.
So as long as you're paying it off every month, you know, you have to be disciplined.
You have to be disciplined.
And you're building credit as you're using it, right?
If you don't use credit, you don't get credit. So you have to use credit to build credit, yes.
Okay.
So when my daughter was in the beginning stages of high school, I added her as an additional user, not an authorized user. So she got her own card, she got her name on it. I kept it in my closet. She knew where it was, but if we needed her to go get milk and eggs or just anything because we didn't want to go drive, she had her permit or her restricted, she went to the store and she got it. With her credit card that I paid because it was tied to my account, she brought back the receipt, I explained it was totally educational. So now that she's 19 years old at Wichita State, her transmission went out. Most kids, freshmen, would be screwed. But she already had a good credit score, she had multiple credit cards, she knew how to use them. She got her car in the shop, she had a plan, she paid it off in 3.5 months and kept on trucking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a shame that we're not teaching people how to do that, but part of that is on parents, and part of it's because parents don't know. The unknown is scary, but educating yourself with it and learning how to change your habits, and part of it's forgiving yourself too. We have decades of bad decisions. We have to start today to change those habits, but you can't beat yourself up about the past because you didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Mason, anything you have questions about?
I have a question.
Yes.
Say you have some history of bad credit and you're working on getting your credit up to where it needs to be. What is an ideal score when you're looking? What is, I guess, the minimum that you would want for a score?
For buying a home?
Yeah.
Some lending programs can get you into a house at a 500 score. Now, those programs are gonna ask for 10 to 20% down, and you're gonna get 10 to 12% interest rate.
They're
So
still doing those?
there's some people that will buy, there's investors that will do anything high risk because they make more money off of you.
I thought those were against the law.
It's not against the law to make money. If you're willing to agree to those terms. I'm not a lender, so I don't know all the
Yeah.
details, but yes, there are lenders in town that can do that for you. Ultimately, I believe it's every 20 or 200 points or 250 points will get you 1/4%. So, I mean, I want everybody over 700. That's my commitment to each client. Just because we can get a pre-approval at a 620 to 640 doesn't mean I'm done with them. So I'm still telling them we're not buying new cars, we're not buying furniture until after closing. But ultimately, the higher we get your score, the better rates you're gonna get on all that stuff anyway.
Okay, so if I have a client or a first-time home buyer wanting to buy a, home, they're in the, say they're in the 500s, okay? How long do you, on average, would it take you to get them up to, a good score? Just
These are
say
always my
six,
favorite questions.
say 650, or, we
Yeah.
need 650, 670 to get a decent home loan, on average.
So there's multiple different answers to this, but they all the answers stem back to your client. If they're not willing to act and do what the program says, it's gonna take a very long time. Just removing negative remarks using the Fair Credit Reporting Act is not going to get their score into the 700s. They've gotta start opening new accounts, paying down existing balances, and making sure that we're making all this formula work in their favor. So it can go anywhere from 3 months to 10 months. It just depends. Everybody's credit's different, so without seeing an actual credit report and where everything lies, I can't put an exact number on that. The industry kind of rule of thumb is it takes about 6 months if you have no credit to get a credit score. But I took a client from a no score to in the high 500s in 30 days. Because she opened up all the accounts I told her to and is acting on it.
Yeah, so if they stay aggressive and do what you say and are serious, then you're saying 3 months minimum.
But if they have no score at all, it's also those accounts have to be active,
Right,
they have to be
right.
being used, and then they have to be being reported to the bureau so that can reflect on the score.
Right.
There's so many moving parts. But if they already have a score and they're in the low 400s, high 500s, somewhere in that range, it can be 3 to 6 months.
That's not bad. That's worth it.
I have another question, I'm sorry. So when you have clients, when you get started with them, you sit down with them and tell them this is what you need to do. Do you meet monthly after that with them, or do you talk on the phone with them monthly? What kind of coaching do you give?
So I use video coaching. So I use Loom. It's a website that records my screen. I've got a whole podcasting set up at home, so I use that. I can also see when they view them, so I know that they're watching it or not. So if they say, hey, nothing's changing, I'm like, yeah, you're not even watching the videos I'm sending you.
Okay.
So, but then they have my number, they can call, they can text, they can email. I'm not gonna say, well, you've meet your maximum amount of coaching time,
Right.
but I'm not gonna hold their hand every single day too. So, I'm always available until we get to that 700, and it's gonna be on all 3 of them. So we get 2 of them to 700 and the others in the 90s, then 690s, then, and I'm not gonna ever not answer my phone anyway, so.
Right.
But, I couldn't charge an appropriate amount of money for me to sit down in front of somebody every single month for an extended period of time. I wouldn't have enough time in the day. But with one thing that did good come out of COVID was that people are used to Zoom calls, they're used
Right.
to those kind of
Yeah.
interactions, so. But then I don't delete the videos either, so they can watch as many times as they want. They can write down all the questions, or can get it knocked out.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So, okay, I don't know how you feel about Dave Ramsey.
Oh, Dave.
Oh, Dave. So some of the things I really click with me, things he says. So I have some credit cards I'm trying to pay down, not necessarily to help my score, but just because they're high and I'm trying to whittle it down. His method is take all your cards, start with the lowest amount, pay that off, and then pay your minimum on everything else. And then you go to the next card that's the lowest amount. Do you agree with that method, or?
You have to do what works for you.
Yeah.
And so I was a psychology major for 3 years, and so the reason that is, he instructs us from psychological standpoint, you're creating a series of small victories that helps you with momentum and continue on.
Gotcha.
So you can take the smallest balance and pay that off and roll that payment into the next one and let it snowball effect. Or you can figure out which account has the highest interest rate, so you're minimizing that. But it's a lot of times those accounts have the bigger balances and it's gonna take longer, so you're not gonna have that same mentality and effect from a psychological standpoint. So that's the reason that he does suggest that.
Okay.
But like what you were saying earlier, to me, if you are trying to build credit, is you'd wanna pay those down to 10%.
I wanna pay them
Or
down
at
to
least-
0%. I pay mine off every single month by the statement date, every single month, every single
But
month.
as long as you're under 30%, you're helping your credit, right?
That's target one.
But 10% is where you wanna be. But
Under
as long
10%.
as it's under 30, it's helping your credit.
It's the closer to 0 is helping your credit. The closer to 0 is the least amount of interest you're paying every
Right,
single
right.
month. People that are in the 800 to 850 range are generally leaving about 3% utilization on their cards.
That's not very much.
Well, it's not very much if you're looking at it from a one card $1,000 limit
Right,
perspective.
right.
But if you've got 7 cards at $20,000 each,
Right.
it's really can be a significant amount of money left on the card.
Yeah,
It's all a matter of perspective,
right.
but it's all a matter of education. You don't start off with that. Like my daughter graduated from Heights High School last year. We went to Cancun for her graduation present. I spent $150 in fees to fly a family of 5 round trip from Wichita to Cancun because I got a Southwest Rewards card that I put all my
Oh, yeah.
Amazon stuff on, and I've had the point. I mean, we flew to Seattle 4 years ago and didn't pay a penny. I mean, except for the taxes.
Right.
My wife's going to Dallas in 2 weeks for her cousin's baby shower. The hotel rooms are covered on my Hotels.com card. You don't start off in the 400s and 500s and get those rewards, but once we build you into the high 600s, low 700s, you start to get those. Then it's,
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about Zillow leads. What are you going to use to pay for that? Well, that's a regular monthly reoccurring bill for a real estate agent is how you're getting your leads.
Right.
So put that on a rewards card, so now you're getting something that you're going to use for that value. When you do an open house and you provide drinks or whatever, refreshments and stuff.
And then,
These are all expenses that are a regular part of your business that you should be using credit in a way that's going to add value to you. Like, at some point you switch from needing credit to them needing you, so they're rewarding you to be that consumer. So set yourself in a position where every transaction you get, you're either getting cash back or points towards something. You should be getting the value of using credit every time you use it.
yeah, play the game to win.
Yeah,
Instead of lose.
it's a
Yeah.
game and you have to know the rules first and then you learn to play it right. And then once you learn how to play it right, doors open for you. That should be open for you the whole way.
Absolutely, man. Any other questions?
Cool?
Yeah, thank you.